The film opens with scenes of a beautiful and lush Indian mountain town known as Ooty. Some college students have arrived for a picnic, and they are busy playing truth or dare. One girl is dared by her boyfriend to kiss in front of everyone. The girl playfully tricks her boyfriend and runs off into the nearby woods. She thinks this is hilarious, but her boyfriend is getting concerned. She hides behind a tree while he continues to look for her. He runs and makes it out of the woods on the other end, where he finds an ominously dark house. Back in the woods, the girl is still laughing at having tricked her boyfriend. Out of nowhere, her hair catches some wind, as if a person blew on it. When she turns around, she hears a blood-curdling scream emanating from deep within the woods. She now gets scared and begins to call out to her boyfriend. She looks up and sees something above her, and it makes her scream in the same blood-curdling manner. The scene now cuts to Professor Agni Swaroop, who is doing some paperwork in his dimly lit library. He senses that someone is about to visit him. Moments later, two concerned police officers walk in. Before they can say anything, Professor Agni asks them if something unfortunate has happened in the woods. The police officers are too stunned to speak at the professor's intuition. They take him to the local hospital, claiming that only he can help with the case at hand. Arriving at the hospital, they witness the girl's boyfriend being treated by a nurse. He has suffered a serious injury on his neck and arm. He was brutally attacked by his girlfriend in the woods. Professor Agni grows exceedingly perplexed and wants to see the girl. Waking into the hospital room, he witnesses a panel of doctors fully engaged in running numerous tests on the girl. They believe she is having an unprecedented psychotic episode. Professor Agni finds the girl behind a glass wall, where she is tied to the bed. She begins to speak in tongues. Her voice gets extremely deep and she begins to bang her head back and forth. She claims, "I have arrived, and I am never leaving again." The professor loses his cool, and he yells at the doctors to stop their tests. He claims that nothing is wrong with this girl's brain. Instead, an unknown entity has taken hold of her. The girl needs to be helped immediately, because her body won't be able to take this torment for very long. He requests to see the place where this incident happened. Once inside the woods, Professor Agni senses the presence of an evil entity. He claims that this forest has a dark past, and its mystery needs to be uncovered before the evil spirit can hurt more people. The boyfriend's phone suddenly rings and they all get startled. He is informed that his girlfriend has passed away at the hospital. The scene now cuts to a high-profile party in Mumbai where India's biggest business moguls are present. Dancers dressed in Gothic robes are putting on an electrifying performance. The camera pans to a woman who is not really enjoying the party. Sunjuna is an extremely beautiful woman dressed in a sultry black dress. She is having extreme anxiety and wants to leave, but her rich husband Aditya is busy socializing with his slimy business buddies. Sunjuna gets some water from the bartender and takes a sleeping pill to calm her nerves, but it doesn't work. Something is bothering her and beckoning her to leave the party. When she has had enough of Aditya's neglect, she pulls him out of the party and they have an altercation on the staircase. She takes the car keys from Aditya's pockets and begins to drive home. She is crying hysterically while driving when all of a sudden, the world around her becomes eerily quiet, and she hears someone whispering her name out of thin air. Startled beyond belief, Sunjuna crashes the car. Aditya is now seen at the hospital with his parents. The doctor arrives and announces that Sunjuna is miraculously safe. However, the doctor advises Aditya to stop his wife's intake of sleeping pills, and to better take care of her emotional needs also. The next day, Sunjuna wakes up to find her husband pensively staring out of the window. While she suggests divorce, Aditya claims that he will make things better. He doesn't want their relationship to end this way. He offers to take her anywhere in the world for a vacation so they can reconnect and be romantic again. However, something inside Sunjuna commands her decisions again. She tells Aditya that she simply wants to go back to their hometown where they first met, which is none other than the beautiful mountain town of Ooty. While arriving in Ooty, they drive by the campsite where the incident with the college students happened. Sunjuna keeps staring at the woods, as if something is luring her in. When they reach their house, we see that it is the same ominously dark house which was spotted by the college student earlier. They uncover the furniture and get settled in. When night falls, Aditya is in deep sleep while the beautiful Sunjuna stays awake due to her insomnia. She walks up to the windows and finds a ray of moonlight coming in. Upon putting her ear closer to the window, she hears her name being whispered again. The whisper is followed by the same jarring scream of a woman that the college student had heard. Scared yet infuriated, she flings the door wide open to see who is trying to scare her in her own home. She steps out into her backyard and hears the scream again. Now thinking that a woman is injured and needs help, she opens the gate and walks into the woods. However, before she can venture too far, she is grabbed by her husband and brought back to the safety of their home. Once inside, Sunjuna argues that she keeps hearing someone whispering her name, but Aditya denies everything, and claims that she is imagining everything because of her overuse of sleeping pills. Sunjuna takes 2 more sleeping pills and leaves to sleep in another room. The next day, Aditya meets with his friends Ajay and his wife Priya. He confides in them about his marital problems, and they agree to help him get back on good terms with his wife. Back at home, Sunjuna is all alone. While she is doing some garden work, a shovel keeps falling on the ground, as if to make its presence known. When the phone rings inside, Sunjuna walks by the shovel and we see that it has a blood stain on it. Inside, she only hears static noise on the phone. Suddenly, an invisible force causes things to shake, and a photo frame falls to the ground and breaks. At the same time, a local village woman arrives and startles Sunjuna. She claims that she is the new maid appointed by Aditya. When Sunjuna asks about her previous butler Robert, the new maid reveals that Robert has been missing for 8 months, and that his wife is struggling to survive. Shocked by this news, Sunjuna instantly goes to Robert's house in the village. His wife reveals that Robert also heard strange voices of a woman screaming out in pain. The voices drove him mad, and one day, he simply disappeared. Robert's wife also claims that she had called Aditya for help, but he did nothing about it. Now feeling even more bewildered, Sunjuna begins to get suspicious about Aditya. He seems to be hiding something from her. Later that night, Sunjuna is awakened by strange sounds coming from her garden. She hesitantly walks out to find Robert having a mental breakdown on the garden stairs. He is pointing at the sky and begging the voices to stop. He knows Sunjuna can hear the voices also and begs her to make them stop. The scene cuts to Sunjuna waking up in her bed, revealing that this was just a nightmare. The next day, Sunjuna meets with Priya and discusses everything. Priya suggests that they solicit Professor Agni's help. Upon arriving at Sunjuna's house, Professor Agni is instantly aware of an invisible presence. He claims that he can feel a tormented soul lingering in this house. He asks Sunjuna to open the attic, which has been locked for 2 years. The professor creates a totem with a lemon and places it on the ground between some candles. He claims that if the lemon changes color by sunset, then the presence of a dark spirit will be confirmed. Sunjuna waits patiently. When the sun sets, she goes into the attic and unwraps the lemon only to find that it has indeed changed color. It is now red. This causes her to trip balls and completely lose her cool. She barges in on Aditya's business meeting while crying hysterically. Everyone tries to calm her down, but she claims that there is something in their house. Aditya is completely embarrassed in front of his business executives. The next day, Aditya publicly beats up Professor Agni for manipulating and gaslighting Sunjuna. The professor gets emotional because he was only trying to help. It is now even more clear that Aditya is trying to hide a dark secret. Sometime later, Aditya and Ajay have to leave Uti due to a business emergency. They leave Sunjuna and Priya behind. However, Sunjuna convinces Priya to go home and leave her alone. She wants to figure out if someone is actually trying to reach out to her, or if she is just going crazy. Once she is alone, she is startled by her bedroom door flinging open. She shuts the door when her hair catches some wind, as if a person is blowing on it. Upon turning around, she notices a drop of fresh blood on her hand. When she looks up, blood begins to rain down from the chandelier. Completely flabbergasted by this phenomenon, she tries to escape the house, but all the doors keep locking on their own. She barely makes it out and ends up in her garden. There is a mirror in the garden where Sunjuna witnesses the reflection of a woman drenched in blood, reaching out to her with one hand. However, when she looks back, there is no one behind her. She runs out into the backyard and screams that she will not be scared in her own house. Soon, she passes out. The next day, Priya and Sunjuna go back to Professor Agni to beg for his forgiveness. He is furious and announces that he will not involve himself with their private matters anymore. However, when Sunjuna reveals that she saw a bloodied woman in the mirror, the professor grows silent. He shows them the hospital video of the college girl and claims that all of this is connected. He drives to the spot in the woods where the college girl incident had happened. The professor tells Sunjuna to step out into the woods alone, since the spirit only wants to talk to her. She bravely steps out and walks forward. She asks the spirit to make its presence known. Suddenly, thick fog appears and separates Sunjuna from the professor and Priya in the car. The same pattern follows. Someone blows on Sunjuna's hair from the back, and she hears the intense scream. Meanwhile, all the doors on the professor's car lock on their own. While Sunjuna runs deeper into the woods, the professor and Priya narrowly escape being hit by a flying log that appears out of thin air. The screaming continues, and it shatters the professor's car windows. Sunjuna is hurled into the air and thrown a great distance away, where she spots a gun on the ground. The spirit is certainly making itself known. This is their next clue to solve this supernatural mystery. The next day, the three of them take the gun to a local arms dealer. He verifies that the gun was bought from his shop, and that the owner is a retired army colonel. Given the professor's respect in the local community, the arms dealer reveals the colonel's contact details. Sunjuna calls the colonel and demands more information. She thinks he committed a crime with this gun in the woods, and left it there. The colonel agrees for a meeting. Arriving at his lavish estate, Sunjuna berates the colonel for having done unthinkable crimes in the woods with an innocent girl. Which is why the girl is now haunting the woods and hurting everyone who enters them. The colonel defends himself, and he gets emotional at this accusation. He now reveals that this gun was actually stolen by his daughter Malini, who was emotionally unstable and ran away from home. He had been searching for her, but since the gun has now been found, it is evident that his daughter may have ended herself in the woods, using this gun. All of them get emotional and start to feel hopeless. Back at the library, Priya thinks the story doesn't add up. This girl's spirit has been trying to contact Sunjuna since the night of that business party in Mumbai. If the girl simply ended her own life, how is Sunjuna connected to all of this? The professor then reveals a rare book. It has spells from ancient Hindu scripture, and using this book, Sunjuna can finally form a true connection with the spirit, that is, if she is brave enough to do so. Inviting a spirit with these spells is like playing with death. Since she is desperate for answers, she agrees to use the book. Back at her house, Sunjuna begins to read the spells by the fireplace. Suddenly, everything starts to shake and the electricity goes out. There is banging on all the doors, as if someone is trying to get in. The main door flings open as a strong gust of wind enters the house. Later that night, Aditya finally arrives back from his business trip. He finds it strange that the main door is open. He finds Sunjuna sitting on the garden steps. She is wearing a sultry black dress, and appears to be drunk. While Aditya is disappointed that she has started drinking, Sunjuna begins to seduce him. She is not behaving like herself, and Aditya is taken aback by her sudden transformation. She starts to say cryptic things about Aditya leaving her alone in the woods. She tells him to shut up and pushes him onto the bed. As she gets closer, her face morphs into another woman's bloodied face. Aditya gets extremely scared and pushes her to the ground. He claims, "You can't be her, you are dead." Sunjuna comes back to her senses, and wants to know who is this dead girl that Aditya is talking about. She yells at him, and he finally divulges his dirty secret. A while back, he was visiting Uti alone to take care of some business, while Sunjuna was back in Mumbai. A woman named Malini showed up on a rainy night, claiming that her car had malfunctioned nearby. Aditya allowed her to spend the night in the guest bedroom, and call for help the next morning. However, one thing led to another, and they ended up having a romantic encounter. While she left the next morning and left behind a note, he found her playing violin in the woods the next day, where the two kissed. What followed next was many weeks of romantic encounters where Aditya repeatedly cheated on Sunjuna. When Malini finally found out that Aditya was married, she became furious. Aditya, being the turd that he is, kicked Malini out and told her to never come back. The next day, she stopped his car along the woods and begged to be back in his life. Malini claimed to love Aditya, and wanted him all to herself. As Aditya pushed her away, she rolled downhill into the woods and took a nasty fall. Incredibly furious at his betrayal, she hurled stones at him and claimed that she would soon get her revenge. That night, Aditya came home from work to find Malini in his bedroom. She was wearing a beautiful red dress, while holding her father's gun. She requested Aditya to marry her and leave Sunjuna forever. Upon his refusal, she held the gun to her head and did the unthinkable. Her blood splattered on the chandelier above. We hear her scream in her final moments, which is the same scream Sunjuna has been hearing all this time. The scene now cuts back to the present. The beautiful Sunjuna is hurt beyond belief. She never thought that the man she loved would go behind her back with another woman, and cause so much trauma in her life. Aditya further reveals that he took Malini to the woods and buried her there with Robert's help. He also threw her gun deep into the woods. He erased all the clues so the police would never find this out. However, he didn't know that police would be the least of his concerns. Now completely shattered, Sunjuna packs her bags and leaves him for good. She goes to visit Priya and Professor Agni one last time and tells them everything. While Priya empowers her to leave her cheating husband, the professor thinks otherwise. He claims that if left alone, Malini's spirit would take Aditya to the grave, since she wants so badly to be with him. If not for love, Sunjuna should go back to Aditya for the sake of humanity. He asks Sunjuna to take her husband back to Mumbai. It is the only way to save his life. Sunjuna instantly goes back home and asks the maid to pack all the bags. She hastily asks Aditya to leave with her and never come back to Uti, as it is the only way he can be saved from Malini. They get in the car and leave. But moments later, the real Sunjuna arrives with the professor and Priya. When the confused maid tells them that Aditya just left with Sunjuna, the professor gets scared beyond belief. He claims that this is the beginning of the end. While driving, Aditya keeps requesting Sunjuna to just look at him. When she finally turns back, her face is hollow and rotten. Overcome with shock and horror, Aditya drives off a cliff. The scene cuts to the hospital, where a severely injured Aditya is being treated by the doctors. While Sunjuna is crying, the professor comes up with a final solution. He claims that they have to go back to the woods and burn Malini's corpse. This will send her soul into the afterworld and Aditya's life will be saved. Otherwise, no matter what the doctors do, Aditya won't make it. They drive back to the woods along with Priya and begin to dig with shovels and rakes. The professor goes back to his car to get burning equipment from the trunk. Suddenly, a tree falls on an electricity pole, causing the rouge wires to go everywhere. Professor gets electrocuted by one wire till he foams at the mouth. Moments later, he approaches the girls and hands them the burning equipment. When he looks up, his eyes have gone completely pale. He picks up a shovel and lunges towards the girls and a fight ensues. The possessed professor sends Priya flying a great distance while Sunjuna makes a run for it. She hides behind a tree while the professor continues to look for her. She is barely able to control her screams as she comes face to face with Robert's upside-down hanging corpse. She finally makes it back to the car. While the professor is attacking her through the car's roof, she drives forward and sends him falling to the ground. Sunjuna repeatedly hits the professor with the car till he passes out. Now shaking, she begins to get more petrol from the car's tank so she can burn Malini's corpse. As she is doing this, the professor wakes up again and begins to chase her. She outruns him and finally sets Malini's corpse on fire, thus putting an end to the madness. She finds Priya and they drive back to the hospital where Aditya has made a miraculous recovery. The professor was right about everything, but he is sadly not alive to witness this. The final scene shows Sunjuna teaching Aditya how to walk again after his terrible car crash. Despite his sleazy affair having unfathomable consequences, she is willing to put an end to the suffering and start over. Here this movie ends. To watch more awesome and thought-provoking movie recaps, don't forget to like this video and tell us in the comments which movie you want to see next. Goodbye for now.